and then you should be good. Okay, you're on.
Great. We will start this meeting at 7:02. This is the synchronized meeting of the Conservation Commission, talking about some fairly specific things around bylaws and other on day-to-day stuff. I am Allison Watts, I'm the chair.
Tom Redberg, Commissioner.
Lauren Hill.
Caleb Fields.
Christine McDade.
Josh Lynn, Vice Chair. Mark Casper. Christian Alerts.
Right. So the only thing on the agenda is bylaws or other discussion. And I was going to if you guys are have things you want us to set up and start discussing. I know you sent us some information.
But there's nothing ahead of it at all. Are you ready?
Okay. Yes, we're ready. This is it. We're not doing
I thought it might be a little warm-up.
doing we could do, so the way I sent in the agenda was as you saw it. So it just says bylaws and then it says other business. Okay. So you can under other business, that's for catch-all. Okay.
That is how you had it. Good.
So I'll make sure we stop 10 minutes before we're tired and cranky. Like you say, 10 minutes before you're tired and cranky.
I will start off, okay, on the bylaws. We've got an ad hoc committee of Chris, Caleb, and myself kind of working on this. And I think my goal would be to pick away at it, tonight, definitely no votes tonight, and get it done by March would be my goal by the end of the quarter, would be good. So ahead of that, I'll do a little introduction, and then Chris, you've got a section you want to go over. So I'll hand it off to you, maybe, and I'll come back to me for the other section. All right? Sure. Okay. So one thing I wanted to delete at the beginning was there's some, I think, lack of clarity on whether we are a land use board or not. Like literally, if you go on to the ChatGPT, it'll say, yes, in New Hampshire, the Conservation Commission is a land use board, okay? However, the statutes for that 673, 4, and 5, I think, and a few others probably, they specifically will have planning board, zoning board in them. So, and they won't mention Conservation Commission in them. But there's a lot of things that kind of seem like they would be in there. And like I said, if you go to the computer, you might find out this as it is. But I found something that was pretty definitive today. So I think puts it to bed, and many of you may already know this, but I think maybe a couple of us don't. And this comes from the New Hampshire Office of Strategic Initiatives, and it says RSA 672 defines a land use board, and it has planning, zoning, historic district, building inspector, heritage commission, agriculture commission, housing commission. And the next slide in that presentation says, but not the Conservation Commission. Okay. So that just cleared that up really well, because otherwise we would have a lot of compliance against those other statutes to kind of work into the bylaws. Okay.
It's always my understanding
Yeah.
that they're not a land use.
Good, yeah.
That's what
We are just 36A, which, but the other thing is give a spirit to how they want boards and commissions to operate. So I think there's some useful things in there. And there's a lot more detail in some things rather than that 36A does not have. So it does say it's not a land use board, and the planning board and zoning board often seeks its opinion. Our opinion is advisory, and we're charged with protecting mutual natural resources, which we did. So we're not a land use board in that sense, more advisory, but that there definitely is some conflicting information you can find, with various sources and on the internet on that, even within some of the state documents that pull up on that. So to give another little introduction, usually I just go off the cuff, but I wanted to, I actually wrote some things down this time. So the last meeting, by the way, we recommended a alternate for the select board to appoint, and Dan Blevins. And so the December 22nd meeting, just right before Christmas, I listened in on it, and Hobie said that he felt like he was kind of a sign that he was urging this appointment, but he said he heard that we're working on the bylaws and that the select board was going to hold off on the appointment until the bylaws were done. So I don't, where that came from, but that's what he said. So I was a little surprised, but that was good, I think, and that's supportive of.
I sent them a note saying that we had recommended it and we got a note back saying, I think she said we'll put it on the agenda. So nobody informed me that they were thinking or wanting other information. So I could follow up on that, but I would like.
It was a table of the afternoon meeting, it was a 3 PM meeting. I wasn't there, but I listened in, but he basically tabled it, I think, till some of the stuff gets done, which I think is it works either way, frankly, but I think that's good to get that clarified. And as far as the bylaws go, I think I said this last time, but our bylaws are really the law, the state statutes, okay? What we're calling the bylaws really are more operation procedures than bylaws, really. So I think that we can be pretty clear on that. And that's exactly what the planning board calls them, the rules of procedure. And some of the towns do, but a lot of towns call them bylaws, but they're really more like operating procedures. That's why we have good flexibility for that. And the way I look at procedures is that if we want to have good, consistent quality over time, that we have a good, tight procedure. I think that's important. Just generally, many of us are technical backgrounds, and I think that makes sense with that. And the bylaws that we're working with are from 1992. They need an update. They really do. So I don't think there's any reason, because there might be a thought that, well, they haven't been a problem so far, we could just keep them. But I don't think that quality going forward will be done well if we don't update them and get more specificity. So we do have some things to bring forth tonight. And with the current bylaws, the sections that they have in them, just on sections, are one on authority, another one on powers, another one on organization, another one on officers, and another one on finances. So those are good headings. And some of those are sections that just need to be elucidated a little bit, a few more sentences and things like that in there. So they're perfectly good sentences for that. And yet what we talked about, and Chris and I were talking about this, there are gaps in there, and the gaps are new sections. So the new sections are the things that I think would be good to discuss tonight, at least a couple of them, and just get some thoughts out there that we can work off of, as opposed to us making that section by scratch. Okay, so that's really what our goal is. So the sections that I see as gaps, and this is all up in the air for us to decide on whether there's more sections missing, but the ones I have is, one of them is the role of the select board representative here. Okay. Alternates, obviously that's one that is in our mind. Term transitions and the filling of vacancies definitely needs more fleshing out in that. More specificity to the roles really of the officers, I guess, in that instance, and maybe some new assignments, like recording secretary and whatnot. I think a section on records needs to get done. All documents handling and things like that, how more of a best practices really, but something on documents. Committees, maybe a little more fleshing out on that. Disqualification and kind of requalification after that, for certain instances that might arise, and then perhaps others we'll look at. So those are the sections that I've identified with Chris, and then maybe a little bit with Caleb's input. He was out very recently, so we didn't get the chance to talk yesterday. But what I'd like to talk about tonight really is only two of them, and I'm going to hand off to Chris to lead the discussion on Mark's role as the select board representative, and you can wait.
Okay. Yeah, and if I may, I would say that one of the things that to Tom's point about tonight and process, I was thinking, and we talked about that maybe tonight, since the two most pressing seem to be alternate, and then and I know Allison, you had mentioned that you had questions. I don't know if it was, during some of the recent deliberations.
Questions, people say, what's the role now? It's like, I don't know.
So we determined when we met, when Tom and I met, that those seem to be the two most urgent and low hanging, since the last time we actually kind of put it out there what your role was. And so we had something to work from. And then, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, but when just thinking about processes, we tackled those two, and we talked about before taking all of these in small bites. tackle those two. And then if there are other areas that people feel either need enhancement or additions to the bylaws, we could, you know, what, via a brainstorming session, at least get all of those out there so that we can prioritize those and then kind of start tackling those in the same manner. The other thing that I had jotted down, and I guess it's a question for the group, and you may know more about this, Allison, but we were determining, although Tom has become a legal scholar in his research, was at the end, when we have the bylaws to the way that we want them, does it make sense to have somebody like Derek? And I don't know monetarily, you know, what our abilities are to leverage him, but to have somebody who does this, you know, works with towns, to take a look at it and say, no, this doesn't need to be in the bylaws, or no, this isn't accurate, this should be in, you know, guidelines or code of conduct or whatever. But just for due diligence sake, somebody like Derek could probably just put his eyes on it real quick and say, this is good to go. Just as a kind of final blessing in the end, once we get them to where we want
We
them.
haven't got any bills from Derek.
Just as a footnote, Derek has been replaced by a new attorney.
Oh,
And so I'm just pulling up his name again. We just,
Riff front.
Chris Brent. Yes.
So we don't, just for your information, we don't pay, so the attorneys are paid through the town.
right, that's what I was,
We don't see those invoices.
so,
The
so,
selectmen see them and they're a little shocked. So,
They're a little high. And so it was a decision that was made based on finances.
and we can come back to that because there's a bit of a transition in getting documents together that's involved in that. But in general, I think that's a great idea. We've also been asked to check with the select board, you know, reasonably before we
Yeah.
engage council on anything that isn't
Makes
already
sense.
approved, say, you know, is it okay if we run this by them? Thoughts on that?
On the attorney? Or,
Yeah, let's stick with bylaws. Let's come back to the attorney.
I mean, just to have you, keep you apprised of that for now. But I think, well, it would probably be best we sent out an email as a, you know,
We just sent something, but I think he may have just sent it to the board heads. I'm not quite sure. I didn't,
Okay.
it was
Yeah.
recently, I haven't really looked at it. Whatever it is, I'll check it and forward it to you guys, but
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't really see it before.
I think, and you know, as a point, other than my opening the door here for you and clicking on the computer, on the camera, I think the position for the select board liaison is to just act as a point of communication. Just, I think as an informal type of point of communication, that would be the easiest and best way to define it, you know, and referring back and forth between select board and here. That would be a start.
Just out of my curiosity, so do the select board, is there a discussion? Do they just appoint someone? Do is it ad hoc? You know, you have someone on the planning board, someone here. Does that rotate?
We had kind of parsed out who was going to take on the different boards. So Kat is on the planning board. I had taken this on when we were going for the rug property and all of that. And I said, well, I'll volunteer for that position.
he's joined the safety committee. Or what else is it? Safety committee.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just sort of always for us to keep in mind when we're doing these bylaws, it's not, you don't know who the faces are going to be in 5 years. So it has to be very non-individual. And we have certainly had selectmen's reps that we never saw the entire time they were appointed.
Well,
So-
you could also put that into these bylaws or the operations to say that you have a say in that. You have a hand in, or something to that effect, that you would recommend or
Yeah, I don't think we could do anything other than recommend because we can't tell the select board what to do.
Yeah, like a request
We
to say,
could request or recommend.
yeah, based on someone's experience in that, or whatever the case might be.
It's just been a little more exciting here the last couple of years. Usually the Concom is pretty quiet and nobody cares who shows up.
Right, right. Full house.
But as the town gets bigger, there's going to be more.
Yeah, yeah. And I think also, just as far as broadening the scope of this group, like Tom had said, something having these smaller subgroups, little committees to do some things that are useful. Now, you know, and volleying that back to us and saying, this is what we'd like to do. Is there any problem with that? That kind of thing. So I'm just really a point of communication, whoever I am, whoever this person is sitting here. It's just a point of communication.
So as far as just going back to the two tip for discussion tonight, I didn't get a chance to check back on my email. Did you send something out with the two drafts that we? Or,
You had that original list, basically.
I mean, of the of what you wrote for the alternate, the addition to the bylaws. Did you send that draft out to the group?
Yeah, I'm gonna cover that, but let's do your
Okay.
list that we can go through. You literally had talking.
Oh, are we covering lists?
I think we should just go through.
Okay.
Because
Um,
communication that Mark mentioned is the one that you had, so.
we jot down everything. One of the things that we had talked about was getting any potential areas that needed to be defined. I know you just rattled off some on your list. And then at the conclusion of this, maybe prioritize which ones would be up, what's on deck. Do you want to, somebody want to?
I would like to ask that you run through your
Yeah.
bullets, and we'll stay on the select board representative for a few, 20 more minutes or something, and then move on it, or wrap it.
20 more minutes.
So rattle on my list, or do we want to delve into the select board definition, the liaison?
Yeah, I think your list would be great to work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I did respond to that earlier or late last night. Did you get that?
I didn't.
Okay, then go ahead and then I'll.
A little
do
trouble
that at the end.
clarity here too. So you've sort of gone through a list of things you think are important or, that we've talked about. You have a list of things that you think are also important.
Yeah, I think it's probably
And we
most of what you.
listen to the things. top of the-
Basically, he was working on the select board rep and I'm working on the alternates part.
Okay.
Oh,
We stay on the select board rep aspects right now.
Okay.
That's where you get the lead, and you have the list, and my list is your list, basically, so.
So the definition, not my list of other items.
Your list.
Gotcha.
Sorry.
Obviously.
So Tom had drafted for a definition of the proposed definition for the alternate, and we can send this out and it can be commented on, but this was based largely upon what we talked about last time, Mark, when we talked about your role. So I had, and Tom, so you may, I don't see your comments, but that's fine, because this is just a straw man for us to poke at. So ex officio, select board liaison, and the sections I had were purpose to enhance communication and coordination between the Conservation Commission and the town select board. The commission shall include one ex officio non-voting select board liaison. So that's sort of the high level. And then the next section, appointment and authority. Select board shall appoint one of its members to serve as the ex officio liaison to the Conservation Commission. The next point, the ex officio liaison serves at the pleasure of the select board and a term determined by the select board's internal procedures. The third point, the ex officio liaison shall not be counted as a part of the commission's membership required by RSA 36A3, meaning you're not part of 3 to 7 members.
Mhm.
and shall not be counted for purposes of establishing a quorum and shall have no voting rights on the commission.
Right.
Liaison responsibilities, and this is what we talked about, the ex officio select board liaison shall facilitate communication between the Conservation Commission and the select board. The next point, provide pertinent information from the select board that may support the commission's mission or responsibilities. And third, report commission activities, recommendations, and concerns back to the select board. And the next section was limitations and boundaries. The ex officio liaison shall not vote on commission decisions or count towards a quorum. The next point, participate in deliberations or attempt to influence outcomes. And that participation piece is something could be a little bit vague and maybe needs definition. Shall not chair commission meetings or otherwise direct commission operations. And four, represent a binding select board action unless expressly authorized by the select board. So coming to us with an official select board decision would be through as determined by the select board. Participation, the ex officio liaison may attend meetings of the Conservation Commission, provide factual information or procedural clarifications, ask clarifying questions about process, deadlines, agendas, and lastly, receive all notices, agendas, reports as distributed by the Conservation Commission.
Is there a reason why you say they cannot participate in the discussion?
In deliberations,
In deliberations.
not discussions, but deliberations.
It's the difference, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Difference would be the deliberation was like when you were voting, and you were discussing for a vote, right? And as I mentioned, that I made sure that I would just be quiet during that deliberation. But I do think having an opinion is worthwhile, provided I'm not trying to sway you. I could throw something out there, not during the deliberation, though. I think that's fair enough. So
the deliberation, we talk about it, we say this, that, and the other, and then someone makes a motion, and then we say, now we discuss that motion. So that is the deliberation period. I'm not sure about this definition.
That's what I understood Mark would say.
There was one town that I've read something about that. They could, man, what town was it? It might have been Salem, Madbury or something, who have a liaison and they couldn't make a comment or suggestion that persuaded any member.
Intended. So,
There was specific wording to it though.
yeah, I mean, I do think it's super helpful sometimes to have the select board. I would go as far as discussion, because sometimes, just presenting facts is not enough. They say the select board has decided this and this is why. What do you guys think? Oh, do you think we should do that? And to me, that's discussion, but I can see the difference between that and persuasion or.
Yeah, I think it's sufficient to just say not persuading as opposed to
Or
not
influence a vote.
participating in
Yeah, in
deliberation or discussion.
influencing the decision.
I mean, the whole point of.
Yeah.
I think the point of him being here is to talk to us.
Yes.
Any information or clarification is persuasion. I think. I don't know how you could separate that out. If I was unclear about something and he clarified it, that would be persuading me. I mean, so.
I think that's where it gets into factual information. And I think though, it's a fine line, right? I mean, it's kind of hard, and this is, I guess, where lawyers get in all this lingo. But if you're here and we get to deliberations, it's one thing to participate in discussion and say, I hear what you're all saying, but here's my opinion. And then you're kind of neutral and you're providing or it's prefaced with opinion as a part of a discussion. But I think when you get into deliberative session where you're actually finally making sort of the arguments, and even in then, I think if you had a factual piece of information to present during deliberations, I wouldn't see that as persuasive. You're saying, here's a fact that you need to consider as a part of those deliberations.
again, when you're voting or deliberating, I think that's the definition of deliberation, when you're back and forth to come to a decision. Should not be it should not be this position's place to move the number, right? Understood. Prior discussions can be, I could say, well, I would think it's this, and someone could say, no, that's not necessarily true because it's X, Y, Z, you know. I mean, that's not really necessarily persuading. I think that is throwing, lobbing the ball out there.
Take the example of what I'm hearing is that you would participate in discussions when we're generally gathering information, sharing thoughts and so forth. But when we make the motion and then still have the questions about the motion, you would not participate then, other than maybe a factual, don't forget this piece of information. If we were, as a commission, to then make a motion and vote a particular item, many of the items do have to go to the select board, not everything, because that's part of the bylaws, is what we define, but some items may have to go to the select board.
Yeah.
If you disagreed with our vote,
Not for me to say.
but you would have to represent the vote that or is this Allison, you represent the vote?
No, I think he goes back to the select board. and
I would
says,
communicate that back.
But then as a member of the Board of Selectmen, then I think at that point you can say, well, my opinion as a Board of Selectmen is that they were wacko, but I don't get to say that in that meeting, but in this meeting,
Yeah. I think
maybe
I
not.
think communicating is the job here is communication, and to keep it as clean as possible. That, I think, is the point. To say, this is what I heard from the meeting before, the select board, and to transfer any information that's here back to the select. So that's essentially what it should be. Now, we've had some heated discussions based on things that like you said, we had a full house for the first time in a very long time. So, as I mentioned, while you're deliberating, person that's here, when you were voting on it, it's not for me to interject any information otherwise. So if someone is in favor or against my own beliefs, it's not for me to say, oh, no, that let's move on, or something like that. It's not for me to sway, right? I think you all have your minds made up in certain cases as it is, so it doesn't matter anyway for me to try to move the needle one way or another anyway. So I think just staying within a communication window would probably be the safest. To repeat things, if you could please repeat that, maybe go to the, refer to the attorney or something to that effect. More my own limited knowledge of the policies and procedures in those situations.
So in that November meeting, most of the discussion was done prior to live motions being on the table.
Yes.
So they were just discussions. So, and that's the area where I feel like your participation, if you wanted to, would have been great at that point. But live motion going, then I'm kind of thinking maybe at that point it gets cut off. It's a higher bar for you to
Exactly.
add things, just for clarity or whatever. But I think some of the discussions get valuable input. So I don't think we need to word it, to be open more than closed on that topic.
One way to differentiate maybe is you are allowed to inform, but not allowed to direct or steer outcomes or pressure members towards a specific outcome. Like I see that as a difference.
And I can, however we want to approach this when we get to the point of, and same with the alternates, when we get to the point of that section, maybe people need to percolate a bit. I can send this to each of you so that you have that, and whatever revisions, if there's language like that, that we want to tweak, we can maybe.
Most of what I heard sounded fine. I thought there was a little bit of repetition, so seeing it written down, the opportunity to fine tune and then bring it forward as a motion next time and vote on it seems fine.
The only thing that might be, I think you said it in there, but I might have missed it, about communication is the select board's rep included on all communication. Like
Okay.
randomly sending emails.
Yeah,
She sends to everybody.
that's a good point of clarification. I had in there that, that anyone, the person in that role receives all notices, agendas, reports, things that are distributed to commission members. I guess it could go either way. We talked about that a little bit
I think
as far as all communications, because I could see that going either way. It could either be a nuisance, it could be helpful.
well, if you're sending it out to everyone in the group, should include the select board liaison.
Yeah, I don't see any reason not
Corresponding
to.
back and forth, just one to one.
Yeah,
It's
so,
not necessary. to be-
anything that goes out to
Maybe just
the
put
group.
general communications.
I think that makes sense.
Like that.
Yeah,
Good, thanks.
And I think the point that you mentioned about the committees, that he wouldn't be a member of a committee, then that covers some of the other things we might be doing where you and Tom and Caleb are getting together about bylaws. You're not going to include Mark or the select board member in those communications because that's a working group that's going to come then to the full
right.
board.
Yeah.
Nothing gets decided without everybody being involved, but they're also really, there can be distribution of materials to everybody, but we cannot do any decision-making or discussions or deliberations via email. So we need to make that very clear. And that kind of gets me to a kind of a sub point here, which I had on my thing about, electronic information is, I don't think it's great practice that all these things, the easement reports and treasurer thing, they go into email attachments because some are going to get missing. I think we need to have a folder structure for the public and private folders like we have now, where they go into there and then everybody can look at them. And then there's no quorum issues then because it's just basically everybody's going into the same pot of information. There's not anything back and forth.
About that, I totally agree, but it's separate. Yeah, but yeah, I totally
But
agree.
it was tied into the, receiving everything.
I think generally everything in there is great. I think there is repetition and just because we're doing a lot, I think we want to streamline as much as
Sure.
possible. So if you take a first cut at that and then send it out, we'll.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take up another pass at streamlining it a bit.
And this was this for me was very confusing because the board's rep does vote and talk. In some cases incessantly. So it to me, I thought that was what I thought the role was. And I was kind of like, I had to do a little reset mentally. Because I had never actually looked closely and it's not stated anywhere. So to be able to state that would be super.
Yeah.
It is different, yeah.
It seemed like a good acceptance in general of that. And we talked about the discussion part a little bit. So there's some word choice on that. I want to bring something else that I learned. This is part of what I sent later on. Getting into definitions again. The actual, and I think there was enough fodder that I found on this to say that I'm accurate. The word ex officio means that as a select board member, ex officio select board member on our commission, that he's a member of the commission with full rights. So he really is a representative. He's not an ex officio member. And that's, I think Kat actually is part of the planning board and is a true ex officio,
Right. So that's the voting.
and that's different. So this is different. So you could say ex officio non-voting, which is kind of, but just the word ex officio non-voting are a bit in conflict.
Select board representative, I think is what we used to call it.
So that word itself, just And it's used all over the place, so it's not probably a big deal, but it'd be good maybe not to use that.
Yeah.
Planning board one does not have it in there, so, there's some conformity with what they've got. Hey, good.
Thank you. Progress.
Did you want to get into that, information and reports?
Let's talk about the
Let's do the alts.
alternate.
Okay. I'm all right. Okay. So, and I wrote some things down for this. So, this is almost for the camera. And I'm going to say, this commission desires the involvement of public.
Public.
Being an alternate is not the only way the town can join in on this. So please join in, and not tonight, but often there are people that at least have something to say in here. But if there's any conservation related project that anybody wants to take up, they can drive it. And if it's within our mission, we'll support it and contribute to it. So the alternate is not the only way to get into the commission without being a member. So I think that needs to be clear. Now the alternate in sports metaphors, a bit like the DH in baseball or backup quarterbacks. You don't have a ton of them generally, and there's rules around them because it does get kind of, it's slippery, I guess, when you have multiple ones, or they're not happy as players because they're not really getting much game time. So I think that, out of respect for this position, that's part of the reason we want to make it clear what they are signing up for and how we intend to utilize them. So the main topic areas that I think with an alternate is that that we will be adding an alternate to our composition part of the bylaws. They will be potentially part of a quorum if they are seated. And that kind of ties into how do they get seated and under what circumstances. And generally what you find out is that's for the chair to do based on some circumstances, which we could discuss. Last meeting, I think we decided pretty much that one was a good number to recommend. I think legally the select board can pick up to 3, but I think they would go, if we said we want to have 1, I think that would go along with that, and not have 3. Part of the original reason I think they might have had 3 in the statute is that they're 3-year terms, and if you're going to stagger the terms, then 3 makes sense in that regard. But one of the things that I think is important to discuss is we don't have to have a 3-year term on it. So I'd like to throw that out to the group. A 3-year term is maybe nice if you want to have longevity, but it might actually be a longer sign up than some people would like to do. And it kind of gets them in there. So do you have any thought that basically having an alternate be a 1 or 2 year would be a better term, and not for any, ulterior reasons, but just to make it kind of a more fluid position and allow them to, and they could always be re-upped, but we don't have to make a 3-year term. And it might actually bring people in that don't want to commit to 3 years. But what do y'all think?
Do we need a term?
That's what I was, yeah, do we need a term?
Oh, these,
I mean, if they don't want to do it, then they can just resign.
I can't, everything has a term. I mean, I haven't run across any member or board where there's not a term. And so, yeah.
I mean, I would go with 3 years partly for consistency.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, it's the commitment, but honestly, when people get tired of being here, they just leave with no step.
Someone can opt out.
The example.
It's not like they,
It's a year to even figure out what you're doing, I think. I mean, you guys would know, but I think in a year, you're not gonna get very far. And if you're bored after a year, you can, when people come in, we can say, this is a 3-year term, but if you decide it's not for you in 6 months, you don't have any major commitment here. That would be my take. Others.
So
We're
none at all in 3. Okay.
all right, so it's a non-binding binder, as they say in real estate, non-binding binder. But, the same kind of thing, it psychologically binds you just, okay, I gotta be here for 3 years, but you could opt out anytime, really. Way anytime.
All right.
I mean, what are we going to do to hold anybody, right? We want them to think they want to do it enough to make the commitment. And if they figure out for whatever reason, and it could have nothing to do with us, it could just be life circumstances change or whatever, people resign and we accept the resignation and then appoint a new 3-year term member.
Mhm.
So I think as long as we clarify that, you know, what the replacement process is, and this applies to regular members as well as the alternates, what the replacement process is, should someone not serve their full term, then that would cover the alternate as well.
Right. Like with all of us, there just needs to be good clarity on how to fill vacancies effectively and efficiently. Okay. So in terms of roles and expectations, what we would want to have, that they need to be present just like regular members. Okay. And to that effect, the planning board rules of procedure actually has very good wording on that. I don't have it in front of me, but it's actually very good wording on that.
Attendance and kind of.
Yeah, so as far as to wanting them to be part of all the things that we do, but you know, none of us always have to be here anyway, so they have the same thing. But I do have a little my own point, and should an alternate get a little more leeway to remote in, since they very likely, if they see that they know we're all coming tonight, and all they really need to do is have informational use of the meeting, should they have more leeway and to remote in? You know, that goes within how we word it, but also just what our expectations are of the alternate. And that's something I want to throw out there.
But there's right now, we have no bylaw that talks about the presence or not remotely, via alternative technologies. So I think when we write that section.
That's another section.
Yeah, I think that's another section that we can make that consistent with whatever we do. And if they get a little bit more leeway because of what you mentioned, fine, but that's another section to me.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be addressed in the section specifically about presence of an alternate.
Yeah. And maybe it's just informal. Maybe the verbiage is the same, but it's a little more informally. We just kind of allow that to slide. I don't know. I kind of think it's, in this day and age, I think it's a reasonable thing, but
And the real reason for the alternate, if you look at some of the other boards that specifically address it, is so that you have the quorum you need to do the business you need to do. And so the alternate gives you a little bit more leeway, so.
And the alternate,
Yeah.
whether everybody else has shown up. So we want them here physically.
yeah, but they may know we're all showing up, and then, you know, that's very easy to learn that everybody's going to be here, and then they wouldn't be at it. So they wouldn't have to be.
FYI, though, I was sick and we did a remote Teams meeting for myself. I was,
Yeah, there is some guidance, because I looked it up recently, that, a member can attend and vote electronically provided a quorum is present. So there is some guidance from the state on that, but
There
it's
is,
a
yeah.
little bit different.
Yeah.
Because you did that in the summertime when you were
Yeah,
away
yeah.
one time.
Well, then afterwards I checked to see what the state had said on the subject. And it sounds like, basically, they don't want a remote meeting. They don't want, the majority of people somewhere else. They want the majority of the people there.
they just wanted an accommodation.
Yeah, and I want there should be some language around, it's not the standard behavior, it's.
Yeah.
But I'm personally, I'm not sure that I would change that for alternates. I could be talked into it, but I feel like what you want the commitment. And it's fairly hard, really, to follow remotely. I mean, you can listen to these recordings, they're a lot better. Used to be doing it off someone's cell phone, so they are a lot better now, but it's really hard to actually participate, because then you have to sort of like raise your hand and someone has to notice. So in terms of participatory, it's not ideal.
What do you say, Mark? You've remoted in on the select board meetings.
Yeah, it's a little tinny and you're not truly live,
Yeah.
So I would say just use the same language as they've done with other boards, say, and accommodations can be made in certain circumstances for a member to be present remotely, something like that. Yeah.
And there was one time when Kat was there holding the cell herself.
Yes, because the,
And for whatever reason, you couldn't on that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
because the requirement is really only for audible, two-way.
yes,
The visual does not need to be there. It's audible. So that was a bit borderline, but
yeah, yeah. I wanted this to work, just to have it as a, typical Zoom meeting, but we're not there yet.
yeah, that's
It is a lot better than what we had.
that's another thing to get into. Okay. All right. So the big, one of the big questions with an alternate is the process by which they are seated to discuss, deliberate, vote on things like that. Under what circumstances, by whom, and what is the duration of their being seated? When does it come off and the regular member get put back on? So let's discuss that a little. So generally it's done by the chair. And that's, or the appointed chair. And that's fairly reasonable to have that. I don't think there's anything, I guess Allison, any thoughts on that or anybody?
My understanding is that it's usually, for other boards at least, it's by the chair when you have a tie or when you have the either not a quorum or the potential for a tie. So you don't just bring them in as an eighth member occasionally. You bring them in when someone's missing. To
Yeah,
fill
you
that.
always bring them in when someone's missing, but it seems like some of the ones that I read, if there's 7 of us that are supposed to be here, but there were only 6, you would bring in the
You
person.
could choose to bring, yeah.
Right. If there were 5, theoretically, you could still get the quorum and, have the majority vote, but you could still bring them in. So I don't think they made a distinction in the ones that I saw where they detailed it out fairly clearly. They basically said if anyone is missing, then
You can choose.
the alternate is seated and participates.
It's kind of interesting, just from a chair's point of view. Theoretically, we bring in someone, I guess this isn't really any different from a new member. We bring in someone new, they're sitting there and Lori can't make it next time. So does the chair make a decision every time? Sort of look at that person, and go, okay, come on up. It's a little bit weird.
Yeah.
But that's the way it's written in many of the.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think through how that works in. Or, I guess it's fine.
And just like all of us have to recuse ourselves. And it's also if somebody has to recuse
Yeah.
themselves, you can bring them in.
Yeah.
For some reason. So if any of us have to recuse themselves, they can recuse themselves. The topic is something. But they also had it in one of them that if the person was like late and so the chair sat the alternate, if the person shows up, then the alternate is asked to relinquish their seat for the rest of the meeting and then the commission member gets the seat and the vote. So, some of them were very detailed in terms of the level of clarity they went to try and say, this is exactly how we operate. So I assume they were operating with it for a while and ran into some of the problems.
I'm trying to think of the downside. So what is the downside? And I'm just asking you guys, what is the downside of having an alternate come up and sit? So under what circumstances would we
I don't
not?
think there is.
Yeah. We haven't had really many alternates that haven't run out, but hopefully by the time they become an alternate, you believe that they are board material.
Yeah.
It'd be more an issue of something like, I could imagine something where the Vernon family farm situation where it's very complex and complicated and there's a history and so forth. And it took some of us as new members time, even though, I've been following some of the activities in the past. It took time to figure out what the key points are. So somebody coming in just for a meeting, if that hadn't been going on for the time they were in tenure, they may not feel comfortable trying to participate.
But the chair would have the discretion to say, you've only been here a month and this is complicated, so I'm not gonna seat that person. We're gonna proceed with 6 people.
Right.
But that's no different than a new member joining at that time.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Caleb had a lot of fun.
It's happened.
Had to cram.
We all have to brag. It's all of us.
Yeah,
I
and
think one of the circumstances that will come up is if somebody will be out 2 months, maybe 3 months, and they'll miss, a whole section on something we're doing, CSX or something. And so when they come back in, they're going to be poorly informed.
Well, they covered that too in this one that I saw where they said if the member has not been present at previous discussions, then the alternate can be invited to sit in and the member sits out for that discussion. So, like I said, this one, I can't remember.
Well, I'm aware of that, but I find that tricky to execute really with that,
And that alternate,
There's a lot of power in the chair, I'll say that,
yeah, that's,
definitely.
that alternate needs access to all the emails and resources sent around
Yes.
as
Yeah,
well.
they would be
'Cause they
a
have to be able
regular-
to.
I mean, when I
That's-
remember when I first moved here, I said, oh, I'll get involved. And I became an alternate for the planning board. And, I was very green. I didn't have any understanding of how the procedures went. And when I was sitting in on one of the meetings and talking about the gas station going in. And coming from Long Island, I opened my big mouth and I said, don't put that gas station there. You want to shit up this town, it's using language like that. And they were probably cringing, like, who the hell is this guy, I had an opinion. I was right. They didn't listen to me. But I said, do whatever you need to do to, prolong that gas station going in. And they did it. They probably did elongate the procedure for them getting accepted, but they probably said, let's make sure he doesn't come back.
the alternate business is, you may appoint someone as an alternate and think, oh, they're not the right fit for this board. You don't have to appoint them as,
So whoever was not there for the few meetings, I think they might have started showing up. Everything serves its purpose.
the gas station heater is going to be.
Like blood cells. So anyway, that's about as
Your point.
bad as it'll get,
So if the regular member comes back, according to some other bylaws, they have to show some proficiency in that topic. But how do you do that without having,
Personally, I would just go with at the discretion of the chair, and
Yeah.
the chair is usually desperate for anyone who wants to come up, pay attention, so. Yeah, I think that gives enough leeway.
So similar to Mark's role, do we copy the alternate on all group communication?
Yeah.
Okay, everything.
I had that down. So on most things, they will have no vote ever, or no, they're not really players, but they get all the information. And if they're going to be allowed to deliberate on things, that's another question, kind of like Mark's role.
Well, they can also be, the public can be here and participate in discussions, so,
Yeah.
they can participate in discussion.
I think they would not deliberate unless they've been seated as a.
Right, but they can certainly participate.
That's,
And I think they need to have the information.
Yes.
If all of a sudden
If you're gonna be put on the spot, you need to have everything.
you need to have everything, why wouldn't we?
So that's a good question about, are they held to the same standard? So you become a commission member or a select board member, there's a swearing in and all of that, the understanding that to the point of receiving that information that you maintain the
Confidentiality.
thank you, that's the word I was looking for. Some degree of confidentiality, or protection of that information as if you were a commission member. Is there generally with alternates, is there generally like a swearing in and?
You'd have to be
Yeah.
sworn in too if you're gonna hop right in
Fair.
Monday afternoon.
My sense would be is they're included in everything, including discussion, but not the deliberation, so not that part going up. Right
Pass the
before the
motion, yeah.
So that would be my,
Yeah, you could simplify the wording then as that, like, you know, it's all the same, just without the deliberation and the vote.
and the phrasing would
Just
be.
the vote is what I'm hearing. That they would deliberate.
No, if a motion's made,
Well, it's
if a
back.
motion's made, though, only members sitting at the table right now are gonna give their input.
That's, remember, we decided earlier that once
Yeah, I mean,
the motion is made and we deliberate, then those people are not part of
the alternate can't participate.
the.
But
They're
even,
not.
like an example, when I went to the safety board meeting, I was just a member of the audience, right? And I was just a town member attending a public meeting. And they voted on something they're gonna put in the warrant article. And before the meeting finished, I raised my hand and said, listen, I've been sitting here, and if I saw that warrant article without this context of this conversation, this is the problem I would have with the way you've stated that. And they said, ooh, good suggestion. And they changed and re-voted on the warrant article. Now, I couldn't participate in the deliberation, but I was still allowed to make a comment
Mhm.
as a member of the town. And then they acted based on what they thought was right. So that could still happen with an alternate if they were, very knowledgeable and just didn't happen to be seated that day, but they can contribute as a town member in all of the discussion and bring up something that causes a vote to change.
Yeah, so that's information and input, but not any authority, or attempt. I guess it changes the vote, but it's that fine line between information and swaying, but
Did they, had they voted yet?
They had
Yeah.
voted
They
already.
did a motion to reconsider is what they.
Yes. Because they felt the input was useful to what they wanted to accomplish. So that could always happen if an alternate is here. I
Okay.
mean, hopefully that would come out in the first discussion and that wouldn't happen. But the way the dynamics were going that day, I didn't have the opportunity. They didn't recognize me before they did the first vote, but I persisted.
yeah, and it's sort of the difference between, in order to speak, you have to be recognized. So to me, that's not actually participating in the discussion because the discussion is the pre-round. That's contributing input. So that's a little bit different because you can't enter the play unless someone
Right,
fits you in.
right.
So I think that alternates are participating in discussion, not participating in the deliberation, but they could still be invited to bring input, which is different from the deliberation.
Is it almost the same language as?
I think it's the same language.
Okay, and I like that, because that makes kind of.
Copy and paste from other towns.
Okay, we could probably make it so it's pretty much the same, or.
Yeah.
Okay. But that'll solve that. I think that's it on the things I wanted to discuss. I think it was very helpful to get that, and you've got enough to work off some of the language on that, or we do, I should say. Caleb gave me something. Do you want to speak to this at all tonight?
I actually I couldn't upload it onto the thing. I brought a copy for everybody. I don't know if you think that's useful or not. Some of those bullet points
Oh, it's great that you did that.
talked on, but did you look at the back page too?
Like, I just got this. I don't really have.
It's just areas that need to be worked on still as well. It was just kind of a working draft. Put notes to it, thoughts from anybody, whatever. I can pass them around too, though. And this was just a quick,
These are, like I said, tonight really was those two main topics, and we can pick it a couple more at another time. And yours are.
again, this
Some of-
is just put it into the format, but
Yeah.
just to read through and add ideas and comments to each one.
Gotcha.
And then the back page is literally just bullets that bullet points I'm kind of working off of.
You want us to be the conservative committee, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Start
see, and that's when you gotta make your notes.
I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be part of the conservative committee.
I want to bring up, because it goes back to the select board rep a little bit, is site visits. Mark, do you see your stuff? Yeah, other bylaws seem to have it where the site visits are commission members and not the select board rep. I don't know really what logic behind that, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, for the Vernons, we had, I was present there. It was a site visit, and I think Hobie was there as well, so, and I'm trying to remember who else was,
Derek, Conservation Commission.
yeah,
Yeah.
so,
But you were doing that as a select board member.
as a Concom liaison
but Hobie was as select board.
board. So it was just really to hear what the district attorney was,
Yeah. I mean, I don't see any reason why the select board's rep wouldn't be there.
Attorney General.
They may not want to be there. I mean, there are a lot of things we do that are very boring, like looking at wetlands lines, but
Yeah.
I don't see any reason why they would be forbidden from being there.
Right.
Would you think the select board has interest in going to site visits, Gilmore site, or, any of these that?
They have. Select board
I
has.
mean, if it's actually a site
Maybe
visit,
they ask you over time. Has that been done typically, or?
well, if
You
they
like
want,
monitoring?
I mean, we haven't had,
There's an invite.
Mark is like the first one that's actually been that. It's just.
Say that again?
You know.
What Woody Allen say? Or what are these guys? 90, if it's just showing a success, it's just showing.
And the thing about the easements is enforcement falls to the select board. So when we do have an
Right,
infraction,
good.
there it's often appropriate for someone from the select board to be there, because if there has to be action, the select board is going to have to take it.
Yeah, doesn't seem like something that needs to be required or prohibited. It's.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I would just be careful of, is don't make this too restrictive, or too vague.
Right in
On
between.
that back page, I do have a note for site visit protocols as a suggested article as well, which would cover what you're talking about. I don't see why site visits couldn't be open to more.
We just can't have 3 members,
Or it's gotta be a notice. Just has to be.
public notice.
Public notice. But,
That would cover it.
but that's why I think a site visit protocol should be an article we add into.
For instance, during that visit, because we had the attorney there, it was kind of a closed meeting,
Yeah.
and a quorum is not, that goes out the window.
I mean, that to me seems like a non-issue because it's a landowner. I mean, if 4 of us show up, then the whole public can show up?
Oh, no, but
Be notified.
the four of you are showing up, it's a quorum,
Right, but
so that's,
what does that mean? That it's public?
yeah, it should not be, you should not be meeting without public notice and the whole protocol that goes with that.
Like if somebody does a wetlands violation, if 4 of us show up to look, we should notice that.
They put up a public notice so anybody could come up at
Yeah.
the same time.
But if only 3 of us show up.
Yeah, but.
Lori, are you saying like the whole town could show up in someone's yard?
You're right. I see what you mean.
If the site visit to the Vernons.
As they're showing up, right?
Well, I mean,
Posted,
technically, she.
the whole town, the whole seacoast would have shown up. I mean, I never even,
That was the reason.
That's why we have to clarify those protocols, but also put in there too, like notice to landowner and that kind of thing as well.
I mean, the landowners would never, I mean,
Yeah, so, yeah, I get what you're saying. In
Yeah.
sense, if you're inviting the town to the landowner's property, if they don't come, the landowner's not gonna go be happy about it.
36A gives us the right to look at these lands, but it doesn't,
Right.
it's the whole town. Like it's,
right, I mean, that's,
Subcommittee can look at it without having to notify the public. A quorum cannot.
right.
And
It's gotta
that's
be
what
recorded and everything.
Yeah, yeah, that's what Caleb is saying, is that let's clarify that so that if there's ever any question and a town, an easement owner knows that, you know, if they get three people from our commission, it's probably serious, but they're not gonna get the public. We don't have to.
Just thinking out loud, but maybe if everybody showed up at a site visit, it could be a non-public meeting, but it'd have to be formally a non-public
It'd
meeting.
have to be formally with the lawyer present, it sounds like.
And I think the
It would
difference,
fall under a non-public meeting, that'd be.
Yeah, but we have to have the lawyer, so that means that.
Well, you could have a non-public meeting,
without a lawyer.
leave,
You have to keep record though, don't you?
it would be a record.
Right.
uh, Or with an attorney present.
That's just useful stuff to put in there under that article that I think should be added in.
Yep.
But double check double check that.
Yeah, we will.
and if you did have a quorum on a site visit, does that require meeting minutes?
Yeah, I think it,
I think that's the difference. Like,
yeah,
all right, we're all here. Let's write everything down.
yeah. I think it does, because like I've seen, well, no, I'm trying to think, like the planning board, it'll say, under meeting minutes, it will say field site visit conducted.
Yeah.
Which, I guess.
If you just go back to why is that, it sounds like a lot of nonsense and, red tape, but if you just keep it simple. If you have a majority vote, right, and you're meeting somewhere, you're going out for a beer and you're meeting and they're like, you know what? We should all just, vote on this as X, Y, Z. And yeah, I think that's a good idea. And you didn't include the public in that decision making. That's the whole point, right? So that's why you're could be a little clunky sometimes when you're supposed to be separated out, but it's meant to keep the public informed.
Provide them the opportunity to participate.
Yeah, and hear what you have to say, hear what you're saying, right?
There's a little sentence, I think it's in 673, that talks about kind of impromptu social run-ins, if
That's
we all show up at the coffee shop and, just, there's, a little bit of latitude where, you're not
Right.
you get arrested by doing that, but you cannot really talk about anything related to business at all. You have to stay within the spirit of no participation.
that's the idea.
I think that's the key, because I'm trying to think, because we have certainly had site visits, like when there's going to be wetlands things where the whole commission goes out to same the planning board. I think maybe the key is that you are there for information gathering. So even though a quorum is present, you're not discussing the matter. You're gathering information.
I mean, that's what I always,
I think that's the difference. It's,
man, this is never.
but you're not talking about it with each other. Because it certainly happens.
Yeah,
So you notice it. But
I mean, Old Lee Road.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. That might happen.
I mean, yeah, a bunch of us.
There. I don't know about the rest of the town, but all the boards are there. Yeah.
I think you're saying you met at some point, but no decisions were made.
We did a site visit to a wetlands.
So then maybe that's clarification.
And it was
from the new.
A bunch of us showed up, planning board people showed up.
List of things that we asked the town attorney. Yeah, not a lot of back and forth, like an email. Here's some questions
Like-
we have.
It sounds like this is one that we need to be very
I
specific
just don't know
on.
the answer to that one. Oh.
Yeah, send an email and direct it.
Or that also,
Emails are going to be directed to Obi for any questions to the attorney.
Yeah.
That's kind of it.
Okay. There was another one that can they review these bylaws? That's the other one.
I had two high level, I think, quick points about the bylaws. So one, revision tracking. So we've only had one initial release of the bylaws, and then we updated it recently, right? So the original bylaws had, on the front page, it had everybody's name, had their PO box number, their phone numbers and all that stuff. I'm going to strip that out because we don't want that. But I do think it's good to track changes by date. So I would like to add a revision table on the bottom of the document that says the date, a high level overview of what the change was, not specifics, and then just a list of the members at that time. Does that make sense? Okay. And then the second thing is the release of that final. So we left that meeting and it was decided that I would update it and I'd send it to Sue. If I was a bad actor, I could write anything in there and send it to Sue, right? I would feel more comfortable if I revised it and then sent it back out and we approved it at the next meeting, like the whole final thing. And we can even send it out to like as a meeting attachment to the minutes or something like that if we want to. But I don't want to be the only person typing that up and sending it out to the town. And I, especially on this first one where you transcribed it from the PDF to Word, I wanted to go like line by line and make sure that that transcription was correct. I haven't done that yet, so I haven't sent it to Sue.
I did, but I'm.
Yeah. Everybody
It exists in my editing.
Yeah. So with that, I will update the bylaws with what we voted on. And then I'll send you all out a final copy and then we can just approve it at the next meeting. Okay. Okay. And we may want to put that as a section in the bylaws, like how do these get updated and released? There's revision tracking and then everybody approves the final thing. Yeah.
At this point, it's not out yet to everybody, but I am building the whole monster as one document. Taking in, some of these changes we've done and so it's getting built, beyond what that one section has, but it's not out yet. It's purely in draft form.
It is.
Be done that way.
Is that what you had proposed last time, Josh, like a work in progress folder?
Yeah.
Is that where we could store that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's soon it'll be ready for that. Yeah. It won't be nearly ready for a vote, but it'll be ready to start getting, more eyeballs on it. So we're not just looking at it for one day before we vote.
As far as these two sections that we talked about tonight, the select board liaison role and the alternate, what's the next step? How do I know I mentioned sending the draft. I'm going to tweak based on some of the feedback. I was going to send it out to all, but to your point, Tom, does it make sense to put it in a folder where we can all add comments to it? Do we want to, and same with your section, I'm just trying to think of next steps into moving these two sections forward. What's the best way that we think we can tackle that? We could do it via email and people just come back with their thoughts and comments on them for next time.
I think if we should get working with the folders and looking at the folders, and the email should only direct us to the folder.
Yeah,
I like that.
there is some slight risk. I mean, this is where I really like Google Docs. Because there's some slight risk if somebody makes a comment, somebody else is working on it, of overwriting other people's stuff. We don't seem to have, I have asked about space on the town hall. We don't seem to have a SharePoint or anything useful like that available to us. So Google Docs is the only other shareable document that I know of that we have access to.
Yeah, I guess we have a budget. We can just buy it.
We got all that money
Yeah, we
sitting
do.
on the accounts.
Money's all spent, John.
Yeah, we're overspent on 2025.
I mean, do people like Google Docs? I'm used to working with it, but a lot of people hate it. So if you hate it, go ahead and say so. And we can, we could just do the edits and if your
Does
comments
Google
get.
Docs automatically back up? I mean, the nice thing about Word and so forth, the Microsoft environment, is that you can always go back to a previous version.
You can
I
go
don't know
back,
Google
yeah.
Docs.
Yeah.
Because if you can go back and retrieve it and somebody did it in error, or the discussion happens, we go, ooh, like that got changed and it shouldn't have.
I think you
Go
could
back.
save another version, right? I think Google Docs lets you save versions.
You can save versions, or you can just, you can go back through its history
Oh, yeah.
and you
Yeah,
can
it's
go back.
not
through its history.
unintentional stuff.
They're both
Yeah.
wonky.
Yeah, they're just wonky in different ways.
Yeah.
And when you're used to, it feels less clunky, but it's only because you're used to it. But if, you know, the other route is just put in a folder and people look at it and just make comments on the side maybe instead of, or if you're gonna make revisions, do it in track changes.
Well, you should have one scribe, one person as your altering the document, and then let the other people comment on, this is what I think you should change. I would put this paragraph in, or whatever the case might be. And,
But always back it up.
you can back it up, yeah. So basically, like that letter to CSX, I asked for your feedback, and then I took it and kind of blended it in. That's to back out to you. I think I did. So,
So like maybe you do the, which is like you do the alternate members, you do just, you know, write up just that section, each of you. And do we have it?
Probably smart to do it by section, because you can really, you know, it's a one paragraph rather than the whole thing.
I think especially for editing, separately, then
Yeah.
So we'll move forward on that, you know.
where's a good place to put this in the drive?
Do we have the ability to drop, do I have to send it to one of you to drop in the folder, or I can drop it in a folder? So if we have a work in progress folder or something like that, I could just drop it. I can label it by its section. Okay.
Bylaws.
That's the thing. There was actually a folder with kind of a name, like go back and rewrite the file names. Like, have good file names, please, when you're writing some of the file name, because that's your table of contents, basically. It just says bylaws, then, you know, you don't know what's in it, but so bylaws, you
You
know.
want me to make a final call,
Section on,
bylaws revision?
anyhow, and that's with all this stuff.
Create a folder for bylaw revision.
It's just the folder guru, or where's the good
Yeah,
place?
I guess the question is, do we want one folder that is work in process that has many different
Hmm.
things in process, and that's where we keep our sandbox stuff that we're messing with?
I think so.
Or is it onesie twosie? Yeah, like she offered that we could write bylaws in revision. That seems a little bit messier to me. I think the one work in process folder, and then that can have many different topics in it.
Every subfolder.
In other words, try not to have too many top level folders, really, which I think is what you said, which I agree with.
So I guess right under the private folder would be work in process.
All right,
I can do it.
got it
if you
open?
want. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
You can do that, and then under that, we could have one for bylaws. And then can you throw out the link to people?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
On that topic, though, we glanced off it a little bit with records and email, I guess, email attachments. Where I don't think email attachments are good long-term ways of getting the information around, as opposed to putting it in a folder and then telling people, you know, and I don't even think we have to send a link, because that's a lot of work too. Just say it's in the folder, work in progress bylaws or something like that, as opposed to having to go find the link and drop that in each time. Because even on these easement reports, tonight I'm digging through, you know, when did that get sent, and try to find it. So I think it's very cumbersome. And as we're getting more emails back and forth, it's going to get horrible soon, quickly. So I think the folders is the way to basically get us pinpointed into.
Yeah, and it's all there because Josh set up this amazing structure and then things come in. So like if you go, there is a folder in here for the easements and it's broken out by property. I would love to have someone who's sort of I would call it a communications person maybe, who is sort of responsible for organizing this. And I don't know if Josh is willing to keep doing this. He has been doing it, but organizing it and also making sure that the information goes into the right places. Because if different people download, they're going to have different ideas. Is this communication? Is it an easement report? Is it a budget?
Yeah.
And if there's one person who's kind of directing that traffic, it will be dealt with more consistently.
I think with officers, I think we're going to retain the chair, co-chair, secretary, and treasurer. And we're going to have, I think we should put other roles in, and one of them be recording secretary, non-officer role. And I think basically we need an IT person is kind of what we're getting, which is clearly missing. And that would be a little bit on
Well, I would think
electronic
they would,
media and that type
since
of
the
thing.
secretary doesn't have to do the minutes anymore. Why wouldn't it be the secretary?
You want to do that?
I am
No,
for
not-
20 years, told you repeatedly,
It makes sense to me that it could be the secretary.
right, it should be the secretary, whoever is the secretary. I mean,
Which brings us to another question that could go into the bylaws is when do we elect officers? And what is the protocol for that? It's been, I am sick of being secretary. I've been secretary for 20 years. It's your turn. But that's probably, a lot of boards, like the chair changes that every year. We have not done that, but we should think about it.
Basically, all that I see is April. I mean, it's coming up. That's the year, March, April. The terms end, I think it's March 31st. It might be April 31st. I'll look at it. April 30th, but
do you even have a?
they're coming up.
We do, and it's super complicated and I will send it out to you
Okay.
guys. That's on the list for next meeting.
Okay.
But that's something that I think should be either in the bylaws or somewhere in our protocols, because it's just heavy right now. So.
There's not clarity on that one. So some of these things that have been brought up separately, it's good because they're already on your list, they're my list, or whatever. So we're kind of thinking equivalently, which is good.
Okay, so we're going to have two documents that we're going to be looking at before the next meeting. I have a bunch of things and we can talk about what else needs to go onto the agenda for the next meeting. Do we want to have another bylaws topic that's sort of in the queue if we have time for next meeting?
So I was going to say, so when Tom and I met, you have a list of things. I have a list. I think there's a lot of overlap. Caleb, you've clearly got a list. Should we all, whether it's an enhancement or an addition to the bylaws, should we just send them, not to create extra work for the two of you? I was thinking, should we send them our lists to you, or maybe either Caleb, Tom, or I could be the recipient of those lists and consolidate them? Because I feel like what we talked about last time is still the best route to go, which is look at the list in its entirety, determine which ones are of higher magnitude that actually have a greater impact and need to be addressed sooner rather than later, or conversely, look at ones that are a bunch of low-hanging fruit that we can check off the list quickly, but eliminate any overlap and just have a priority list.
It seems like you guys have formed a subcommittee effectively.
Yeah,
We did last meeting, but now that we're through the holidays and stuff, it should be a little easier to.
so maybe since the three of us each have a list, maybe, and I'm happy to consolidate and I can do it in coordination with Caleb and Tom, but if the rest of you have items, send and we can add it to that list and maybe even do some hash marks as to, 6 of us all had this. So there may be some importance to examining that, but rather than having 7 separate lists consolidated into one.
I think that would be awesome if you're up. for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And then we could also do like a quick multi-vote on which ones people want to
Yeah.
address beyond the first
Yeah.
addressed, and do most of it offline so that we're bringing back proposed terminology and what are the questions we still have as a subgroup because we don't know.
And some might require further investigation. And there's some things that even tonight where we're kind of go down a rabbit hole, some things are really hypothetical and maybe just rare situations that will never occur. So we don't really need to waste our time on that.
Right.
Right.
So
Yes, that would be great.
sounds good. So Tom and I will each take our write-ups on these 2 respective things, put them in the folder for review.
I
And
was just going to send out the link for that.
And then if others want to send me their lists, and then I can coordinate with, I have your list, Tom, I think. I definitely have yours, Caleb, and I can start to consolidate that.
Yeah, and I haven't thought of anything glaringly obviously missing, but when I see the full list, if I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll probably spur some things that we haven't thought of.
And then on top of that, as I was saying a minute ago, that draft text is getting built up. For this, so not just lists and things, but draft text. Yep. You know, it's best, and that'll be
Great.
what we vote on ultimately. So, yep.
This is awesome. Progress.
Um,
Anything else on bylaws?
I had, two other things I want to say. First of all, today I was downstairs and talked to Sue, and everybody may know this, but me, and I kind of knew it, I guess, but a new town website is not far off. And so, because I was talking about how, I guess one of the goals I have is to get more educational materials and things on the website where public can find.
Tom's column.
Yeah, huh?
Tom's column.
There you go. Dear Tom. So there will be a better website, I think, town website with some, homepage links and stuff.
Yeah.
Go to documents and all that. So that's good news. So that's great. That's really a few months off, I think. And then I also did a little dive into minutes. And it was very clear to me that minutes are not verbatim, word for word summary, or not even summaries, word for word coverage of a meeting. Minutes are definitely a short summary of the flavor of the meeting. They're not even like a condensed version of what sentences were said and words were spoken. They really are a summary. Okay. So I think that having a chat GPT or some other equivalent distill things down, that gets reviewed and we should be okay. And it shouldn't be like, from what I can tell, it doesn't need to be like, if some of these direct meeting verbatim, minutes that we've had are 5,000 words. The minutes don't need to be like 2,500. They really can be like 100, and cover the flavor of the meeting. So we can do that. And that is what minutes are. So I wanted to clarify that because there's no way we can be rereading every word that's spoken in the meeting.
Until Hillary and her recorder. It was always Lori and you were pretty brief. So, and I agree. It's when you're reading through minutes, you just kind of want to know what they talked about. If you want the details, then it's nice to have the full thing or the video.
Right. It's recorded.
So what I can do, it's just not that hard to do. So I've done it for our meeting a month ago, but I can do it for our last meeting and this meeting. I'll just have ChatGPT do them. And then I'll try and send them out long enough ahead of time in the meeting. And what we'll see is there are problems. Like I said, it doesn't know who's talking for some. So somebody, the erstwhile secretary, is going to have to go through, be the person who does that downloading. This would be my vision, at least. Hopefully not me. Do that downloading and then also put in stuff that's missing, like who's talking, things that might be missed. So there's going to be some tweaking that has to be done by a person, but I think most of it can be done.
Well, officially, I think in the bylaws, the secretary is going to own.
Yeah, there's still going to be a secretary, but that secretary is still going to have to do some secretary.
And to the best of my knowledge, they actually don't need to be approved at a subsequent meeting. There's a requirement to get them out quickly.
Every board approves meeting.
Yes,
I think they do.
they have
If
to.
you looked at Robert's rules of order, that's
Yeah.
probably in
Yeah.
there.
Good.
One thing we don't need to approve is the budget report. So your report,
It doesn't have to.
we
be
have to
voted on.
acknowledge it.
Acknowledge.
For a
Yeah.
moment in the sun and you're trying to take it away.
I know.
Okay.
That was speed.
I have control of the money.
And the reason is that we don't have the financial wherewithal to say, yep, you're right. Like, really, that's why.
Yeah, that's
I
a good
just
point.
assumed it was a report so that people knew if something came up.
Yep, and we will acknowledge that. but
And I think
not-
the wording is usually we vote to accept the report,
Yeah.
which I think is more like we're not arguing with her.
I don't
about
think you need a
it, But we
motion at
probably
all.
don't need to do that. Excellent. I'm gonna add that to my list of things to ask the lawyer.
You think you could do this?
Not the budget, but the treasurer's report.
Treasurer's report.
Yeah.
I could save us minutes every meeting. bylaws. Good, we're good, awesome. Good job, guys. So Chris was asking if we could approve I think we now have 3 monitoring reports that we could approve. We could do that now, we could do it at the next meeting. I think that there's a difference between just approving the report as in, this is what Ariana saw, this is what is in the report. We can approve that. That's different from looking at the reports and deciding whether or not we need action. And I think the Vernon one, at least we need to spend some time really looking at it and deciding if we want to take actions. So I'm willing to do the approval, but I want to save the detailed discussion for the next meeting because I don't think we have time for it now. I don't feel strongly about doing the approvals now versus next meeting either.
I mean, if we're gonna review them, why don't we wait? I mean,
Do the approvals.
oh, at the same time.
That's fine with you sending her the.
And there's no secretary here.
There is no secretary anymore. They're looking for one. Got advertised. Well, that would be for the next agenda. We need to nominate a secretary.
So wait, did you formally resign? Did I totally miss? Do we not have a secretary?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, because you resigned because Hillary, which is a little bit tricky. Okay.
No, I resigned because I was done. And then Forrest was supposed to take over and then he said, oh, guess what?
I think I was,
We're the only board that doesn't have a recording secretary. And I was like, what? Nobody told me this. I didn't, yes,
so we should have a secretary.
I officially resigned.
Next time, let's think about what that role would comprise, because I think it's different, and anyone who might be willing to take that on. You can sit there and stare at your schedules and think about who might actually want to do that. Okay, I'll put that.
I mean, we could probably do whatever we want, but that, like, more formally, the term would start again in that April, May thing. So there could be an interim one, or we could just like roll it in. Yeah, because we should do kind of the whole thing at once at that time.
The alternate could do it.
The alternate.
All right, so if you're okay, we won't do the actual approval of the reports. We'll do that when we look at them more closely. So
I just want to make sure that I'm put out.
yeah,
Well, I thought you approved paying them last.
Sue asked for the reports before she finalized. So Allison provided the draft
yeah,
reports.
I think they're fine. I think she was asking for the reports because people are asking for them. Sorry. So this is what I have on the agenda for next meeting, which is in 2 weeks. Review and discuss those 3 monitoring reports. Talk about membership. So we have a list of who's here and when your terms expire, because March is when we would re-up if we wanted to. And then Keisha is deeply confused about the terms expiring is actually really complicated. I'll send this to you in an email because Josh and Laura, you guys might know the answer to this, but when you replace someone, that person's term becomes your term. So you actually have to know who replaced who.
Yes.
And I think that
I replaced the treasurer. I replaced whoever was the treasurer before.
I think I replaced Forrest.
maybe you replace Forrest. So that's what I mean. Okay, I'm gonna send this out. You're gonna have to.
No, I did.
Sure.
I did.
Oh,
I was the last, the Forrest was the last, so.
There were
His term ends in of March.
Chris replaced Jeff.
Replace Jeff?
No.
No, you were earlier because you were here when Jeff was here. You see the problem? Okay, but I'm gonna make a list. Think about it.
It has then.
I don't see why he should. Usually it's easy, but I can't figure this out. Okay, and then I would like to talk a little bit, we may run out of time, so I'm gonna start prioritizing these to minutes, so I will send out a version of the minutes and we'll take a look at them and see if we can make some decisions about what that erstwhile secretary that we're also gonna talk about gets to do with them.
We will have the treasurer's report in the middle of the month.
And we will have to talk, we will have to vote. We may or may not vote on it.
Either way, but I can report.
We may want, if we have time, I think we also want to start talking about committees that we may want to have. Like, I think, so we have the bylaws committee, which is awesome. I don't know if you're officially a committee. do the bylaws on our list of things in the bylaws, does it say how we officially create a committee? Just as,
There is a section in the bylaw, existing bylaw.
Could have been
then we should
this article.
officially create that committee. There's some other committees that we might want to think about. Like, I think it'd be useful to have an easement committee, people who are just kind of keeping track. It's hard. There's a lot going on. It just, for me, it's hard to keep track of what I am up to, the emails, the invoices, what's been approved, what hasn't. So somebody, and Lori's been doing some of that, and that's sort of gotten away from all of us, so. And then, and if we have time, if we get through all that, we can talk about the next by live priority. And I'll send that out.
Well, there's also some other topics about like, what do people want to do as a mission? Or, because Tom had some ideas about educational options and so forth. So at some point. Yeah.
Well, 2026 planning, really, yeah.
Yeah, like what, is there something we want to do? Because Lori and I met to just understand kind of where all the conservation land is in the town, and that raised some of the questions about how do we get access to some of the maps to make sure we're up to date? And then should we be talking to people, like, do we want to add conservation land or not? Do we want to prioritize?
Which is really the
education
that we've gotten distracted from. So.
Yeah.
But first we gotta get our house in order.
Right.
So did anyone have any luck with granite?
I did not have luck with granite because it's
No.
it's super messy. As far as I've worked on it, it's super messy. There's another one that I'm using, which I've got to go back and look at what it is, that seems a little bit easier, but I'm not sure that I'm getting it right. And I haven't done enough layers, so.
Okay. So another question I have, I don't know if you know the answer to, but we could ask is, we do have a town planner. I mean, does the commission have access to the town planner to say, can you help us make a map of our conservation lands?
What
Updated.
did you say? I haven't really heard.
So we have, I'm just wondering if we can ask the town planner, who is, I can't remember.
For what?
To help us make a map of the conservation lands in town.
Well, so that's the thing is that the maps I dug out of there way back, I had those big maps laminated and they're pretty up to date. They only need to be tweaked a bit more.
Well, there was a couple.
I mean, Daily was,
Yeah.
well, Daily, yeah, but
Doesn't hurt to send them an email to say,
it's not hard to fix.
Yeah, but I think if you're a GIS person, I think that is all in the GIS maps. So I think
Right.
we can spend, Chris can spend, God knows how much time learning GIS, where we could ask the town planner if it's something they can do in a couple hours.
yeah,
If not, then we'll wade through it, but we employ someone who has that skill, so.
Are we a member of the New
It's not
Hampshire?
Greenwood, that's what it is.
Oh, yeah. We're a member of New Hampshire Association of Conservation.
Yes.
Okay, maybe they have like guidance or like people that do that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I go to Rockingham Planning Commission, they're just churning out maps like that.
Mm.
It's just knowing how to hit the right layers in GIS.
Well, and the other thing that I dug up is, remember, and I couldn't believe when I looked at it. 2008 is when we had Ellen do the inventory.
Yeah.
So that's 17 years ago.
Sorry again.
I mean, that's what we really need to do.
Yeah.
Before we start acquiring other
Right.
things to inventory.
Right.
Okay. So I'll send out a draft agenda, Monday, the week before.
Is that available sometime, Lori?
Yeah, I actually made a copy for you. I've got it too. In fact, actually, you can have what I have, because I have one at home. And I wrote, it doesn't have Vienna on it. And it doesn't have case, which I wrote down.
Like, what do we have and where is it and so forth, so.
And who has it? And
Numbers related, I can do that.
It's not GIS.
It's not GIS.
Anything else we need to?
that has everything. I mean, it has the stuff associated with developments, Partridge Hill, Ridge Road, Runaway, all that.
And that's the kind of thing that we could either look for grant funding or find some funding to try and bring someone in to get
Yeah.
that updated. Yep. Okay, anything else for tonight? Awesome. I make a motion that we adjourn at 8:41.
8:41.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All righty. Thanks. Back into the cold.
It's a question on there, it's not the beginners.
Hey, that was a long one.
Yeah,